What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Waiver Wire Queen. In today's episode, we are going to re-rank our top 10 wide receivers, and these rankings are post preseason rankings. Hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content which will help you throughout your fantasy football season so you can be ahead of your competition and achieve your ultimate goal. And your ultimate goal should always be to win your league. Let's talk about these wide receivers. I'm loving the wide receiver position this year, especially after the 2022 NFL draft. That was a deep class, and wide receiver position it's a bit fun for me. I'm really loving um, three wide receivers in fantasy football to start as part of your roster format. All right, y'all, let's get into my top 10. Coming in at number 10, Keenan Allen with the Los Angeles Chargers. He has a top 5 quarterback in Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert may end up finishing as the QB1 this year in fantasy football. One of the most important things for success at the wide receiver position is having a quarterback who's capable of getting you the football. Of course, you can produce stats with any quarterback, but how good are those stats going to be if your quarterback is constantly turning the football over, mediocre play? Well, we already know Justin Herbert is not any of those guys. He is again a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football. Keenan Allen is undervalued. Okay. Yes, Keenan Allen has a history with injuries, but when Keenan Allen is on the field, he's going to produce at a high level. Had a solid 2021 season, 106 receptions, 1,138 yards, 6 touchdowns. I would love to see Keenan Allen creep up to the 1,300 mark as a wide receiver. May not hit those stats because they have Mike Williams. Obviously, they have the talented PPR running back in Austin Eckler. And then they also have Spiller now. And they signed Gerald Everett. So it's probably unlikely he'll go for 1,300. But again, just know if you're drafting Keenan Allen, you always got to wonder how many games he may miss season, although this past year played 16 games. Just know that he's going to be good no matter what's going on. He'll always finish a game off strong and keep you competitive. He can be your wide receiver 1 if you're unable to get any of the top 5 wide receivers. Coming in at number 9, Mr. Consistent. That is what I'm calling him from now on. Mike Evans with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Mike Evans is, again, I would say he is one of the most underappreciated, underrated, undervalued wide receivers in the NFL and in fantasy football. He is going to be consistent, which is why I call him Mr. Consistent. A few things that's going in Mike Evans' favor is, one, he has the GOAT Tom Brady as his quarterback. If you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, it's going to get you the ball. Also, AB is no longer in the building and Gronk is no longer in the building. Although they added Julio Jones and Kyle Rudolph, I don't think those two guys are going to take much away from Evans' production. They also added Russell Gage as well. They're not going to take away from Evans like what AB was doing early on last year. Evans has gone over 1,000 yards every season since he was drafted in the NFL. That's 8 years. That is hard to do, especially when you don't have consistent quarterback play. He hasn't had consistent quarterback play until Tom Brady joined Tampa. So that's just brilliant because you tend to see some wide receivers struggle and their stats take a hit when their quarterback is out. Think about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett without Russell Wilson at times last year. Their stock took a hit last year and will take one this year. Stay away from those guys. Now, again, with Mike Evans, he's just consistent. If you can have a wide receiver like that on your side, you know you got the hamstring issues. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you know that he's going to be there. He's going to show up and he's going to produce the statistics that you are expecting him to produce every week, and even more so now because Godwin's status is up in the air. He's still recovering from knee surgery. um, you just want Mike Evans on your side. 2021 was solid, could have been better. I felt like early on, AB and Gronk was really taken away from Evans' production, and it was going to end up being a season under 1,000 yards, in my opinion. But when AB went out with the injury, then left the team, and Gronk out with the injury, that kind of saved Evans' season and his eighth 1,000-yard season. 2021's what, 74 receptions, 1,035 yards, and 14 touchdowns. 14 touchdowns is an awful lot for a wide receiver, but hell, I'm all for it with Mike Evans. If you can draft Mike Evans, do so. He's not going to go in the first round, but if you can pair Mike Evans with one of the top 5 wide receivers on this list, then you are doing everything right in fantasy football. Coming in at number 8, we have Deebo Samuels with the San Francisco 49ers. His quarterback is Trey Lance. Trey Lance will be a breakout candidate this year. There may be some growing pains with Trey Lance because technically this is truly his first official season as a starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So keep that in mind. Think about it. If Deebo was able to have a career year in 2021 with the inconsistent play of Jimmy G and everything that went on, then if Trey Lance can be consistent and end up being better than Jimmy G, which is most of us are predicting and envision, and obviously the 49ers as well, then Deebo Samuel is set up for another career year or similar stats. 2021, 77 receptions, 1,405 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. Rushing is key. So with Deebo, you know that you're going to get the receiving aspect and the rushing aspect as well. So that's a lot of stats from your wide receiver. You're tapping into the receiving and the rushing stats, which is great. 365 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. That is an amazing season. That was his best season. Previously injuries, pretty much was on the field for the most part in 2021. And we're hoping for that in 2022. I do believe his stats may come down slightly in 2022 because I do expect Brandon Ayuk to be a little bit more involved, and I do expect Trey Lance to utilize Kittle as well. So I do expect them to spread it out a little bit more. They're going to run the football. So Deebo should still have a good season, just not his career year, because they're going to spread the ball out a bit and other players are going to get involved. Coming in at number 7, and this is a surprise because this young man is no longer in my top 5, Tyreek Hill with the Miami Dolphins. He has Tua as his quarterback. In my opinion, that is a downgrade from Patrick Mahomes. According to Tyreek Hill, Tua is the most accurate quarterback ever. But we'll just have to see. He still has the potential to finish in the top 5. I just want to see him and Tua in a game, not preseason. I want to see him in one of these games against the first team players, and I want to see what he's capable of doing. I want to see if Tua can hit those throws, make all the right throws, not overthrow, not underthrow Tyreek Hill. He's still going to be the number one wide receiver, but keep in mind you do have a Waddle there, Gesicki, which they may be a little bit down on him, which I don't see why, but nonetheless, Tyreek Hill's still going to be good. If he was with Mahomes, he would most likely be in my top 5, but he's not. So he has to take the hit, and he's no longer in that, obviously, top 5. Okay. He's definitely going to finish in the top 10, but again, his stats may come down a little bit. 2021 was a very good year, but with Tyreek Hill, we've obviously seen better. So 2021, 111 receptions, 1,239 yards, and 9 touchdowns, which is a good season. However, we just need to see if him and Tua will connect and if Tua's going to be accurate. I don't care if Tyreek Hill is saying all these things because he's saying the right things. But we need to see it in order to believe it. Coming in at number 6, we have Stephon Diggs with the Buffalo Bills. What's going on, Bills Mafia? One of the major factors for Diggs that is obviously going to go in his favor is he has Josh Allen, who has been the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football the last 2 seasons. I have him as my number 1 quarterback to open the season in fantasy football as well. The Bills offense is a high-powered, beautiful offense. It's just amazing, all right? One of the top 5 offenses in the NFL. I feel like statistically it's going to come down a little bit more from 2021, and we know that he came back down to earth a little bit from 2020, but in 2021, 103 receptions, 1,225 yards, 10 touchdowns, which was a career high. Now, I'm saying his stats may come down a little bit. I'm not saying he's not the number 1 because he is the number 1, but I feel like they have better weapons at wide receiver who will be more involved. Although, yes, we know that Beasley and Sanders were solid. Sanders was past his prime. And this season, better weapons. Gabriel Davis is going to take a huge step this year. It's going to be the full-time starter. We was able to see flashes against the Chiefs in the playoffs, and we're going to see similar flashes. I don't know if he's going to go off like that, but I expect him to have a really good season and be a part of the Bills offense. And also, you know, they got Devin Singletary who they're going to get involved. They're saying running back by committee. We'll see what happens. James Cook is there as well. They got Zach Moss. Isaiah McKenzie is another player to keep in mind. Dawson Knox at the tight end position, and then also Crowder. So they have a lot of weapons, solid weapons, which they can spread the ball around a little bit. Now, although, you know, they have these offensive weapons, Diggs is the clear-cut number 1. So there will be times where Josh Allen is simply going to look for Diggs and get him the ball, which is why he is on this list and ranked 6. So if you have Diggs as your number 1 wide receiver, there's nothing wrong with that. Just know that there may be weeks where Gabriel Davis will be more of the focal point because, say, Diggs is being doubled most of the game, and they're unable to get him the ball. It's just not working. So they may defer and go to Gabriel Davis more because they're going to want to get Gabriel Davis going this season as well. But it's still Diggs show at the wide receiver position. And again, I do expect him to produce just slightly less, maybe 1,150 yards and a little bit less than the 10 touchdowns, maybe 6 touchdowns. Okay. But still going to be pretty good. Now let's talk about the top 5. Coming in at number 5, one of my favorite young wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb with the Dallas Cowboys. That's right. CeeDee Lamb is making his way to the top 5. He was having a really good season, but, you know, things happen, injuries, poor quarterback play at times. Offense just wasn't looking good at times for the Cowboys, and that's just the norm for them at times, like any other NFL team. But he is the clear-cut number one. He has Dak Prescott, who I feel is underrated and undervalued in fantasy football. And again, the Cowboys offense is a really good offense. They have a lot of offensive weapons. And one of the main things CD has going for him is Amari Cooper was traded. And then Michael Gallup is still recovering from an injury. And he may not be ready to start the season. So to me, that's more targets for CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. You'll see a little bit of the young rookie Tolbert, but I don't feel like Schultz or Tolbert is going to be ahead of CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is the number one. He was the number one last year with Amari Cooper on the roster, and he was, you know, starting to develop himself in 2020, and then in 2021 took off. Career year across the board, 79 receptions, 1,102 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He will finish as the wide receiver 5 this year in fantasy football. That 1,100 yard total is going to go up tremendously. I would love to see him get into the 1,300 to 1,400 range as a wide receiver. That's the kind of yardage I want to see from CeeDee Lamb in 2022. And he's very capable of doing it. And the Cowboys are very capable of getting him involved to the point that he can achieve that goal. And then also I want to see 10 touchdowns. You always want to improve every year. That is what it is about for us in fantasy. And that's what we want to see with our young players, especially in a dynasty league. Coming in at number 4, he was my number 1 ranked wide receiver going into the 2021 season, and he is number 4 this year. Davante Adams with the Las Vegas Raiders. That's crazy hearing that, you know, Las Vegas Raiders is not the Green Bay Packers. Hell no. So Davante Adams will be catching passes from Derek Carr, who is another quarterback who is underrated and undervalued. If you are in a redraft league or in a dynasty startup league and you don't want to reach for a quarterback early, then Derek Carr is a very good quarterback who's going to produce for you statistically in fantasy. So keep that in mind. And now back to Davante Adams. Davante Adams will be fine. A lot of people saying, well, Rodgers made him. No, Davante Adams will be fine. Derek Carr is definitely going to benefit from having Davante Adams because he's a true number 1 wide receiver. They didn't have that last season. And Adams may take a slight hit statistically, and it's not because Adams is just not a good wide receiver. It's because when you look at the Raiders' offensive weapons compared to the Packers' offensive weapons, it ain't adding up. The Raiders have better offensive weapons at tight end. You got Darren Waller, and even at wide receiver, you have Hunter Renfrow, who had a career season in 2021 as well. So keep that in mind, and also understand they also have Zamir White, rookie at the running back position, and they also have the talents in Josh Jacobs. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is able to stay with that team. The offense is most likely going to be better this year. New coach, just a better overall situation for the Raider players, and I expect Adams to benefit overall from playing with Derek Carr. He's had a rapport with him, played together in college, and I still believe he will finish in the top 5 and produce statistically. Just may come down slightly because there are so many other weapons. But let's be clear, he is the number 1 target for Derek Carr over everyone, even over Darren Waller. So if you can draft Devontae Adams, draft him. Like, stop passing over Devontae Adams. 2021 was a very good season for him. 123 receptions, 1,553 yards, and 11 touchdowns. I don't expect him to hit 1,500 yards this season. So if you are drafting him, be a little more realistic based on the fact that there are more offensive weapons and they may run the football a little bit. We just got to see what McDaniels is going to do. Coming in at number 3, Ja'Marr Chase with Cincinnati. Ja'Marr Chase had an exceptional rookie season. He may end up finishing as the wide receiver 1. We'll have to see, or push for wide receiver 2. He has the talented Joe Burrow as his quarterback. He's playing on a team that is ready to contend now. They made it to the Super Bowl in 2021. High-powered passing offense. They have a lot of weapons. Joe Mixon. Okay, Joe Mixon's going to run the football. And then you have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They added Hayden Hurst. They have a lot of offensive weapons. But let's be clear, Ja'Marr Chase is the clear-cut number 1. And again, a brilliant 2021 season as a rookie. 81 receptions, 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns. That is very impressive. I will say he only went over 100 yards 5 times. So there were some games where you were like, oh my God, is he going to get going? And then, yes, he got going. And there were some games where he really didn't get going, and touchdowns may have saved him. I think they'll get him to be a little more consistent this season. But overall, this young man, Ja'Marr Chase, is brilliant as hell. Coming in at number 2, who I debate should be the number 1, Justin Jefferson with the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson, I will say this, will finish as the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football in 2022. He's hungry. I don't care if Jefferson has 1,500 yards, 1,600 yards last season. He trying to hit 17. He's always trying to come back the next year even stronger and break records. And you can see when he's playing, he just loves it. And I expect Jefferson to finish as the wide receiver 1. He has Kirk Cousins throwing him the football. I know a lot of you guys get scared when you hear the name Cousins, but let's be clear. Cousins has been solid fantasy-wise, okay? Very underrated in fantasy. And he's not one of those quarterbacks you have to reach and grab early. He's a quarterback you can utilize late in your draft as your starting quarterback. I would pair Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins as my 2 quarterbacks, or either or, because both of these guys have been underappreciated and they have produced. Kirk Cousins, if nothing else, is going to get you over 4,300 passing yards. He's going to have a good touchdown to interception ratio. So what's the problem? It's because, it's Kirk Cousins. I would rather have Kirk Cousins as my starting quarterback in fantasy football than Baker Mayfield, but some people rather have Baker. I don't get the hype with that, but again, Justin Jefferson has been producing with Kirk Cousins. Career year in 2021, 108 receptions, 1,600 yards to be exact, 16. That is an awful lot with a quarterback drafted late in fantasy football. That's impressive. And 10 touchdowns. He is the number 1. He is the clear-cut number 1. That's it. He's the guy. He is the focal point of that passing offense. Yes, you have Adam Thielen still. Osborne is going to come into his own even more this year. And Irv Smith Jr. as well, but it's not going to take away from what Jefferson is going to do. I honestly want to see him push hard to hit 1,700. Is it possible? It sure is. He went for 16. So 1,700 is possible. And also, they have Dalvin Cook as well and Madison. But it's the Justin Jefferson show in Minnesota. So if you can draft Justin Jefferson, you draft him and know that if you are considering drafting him, you will be drafting him in the first round. Scary thing is he can be even better. Wow. And again, he's going to finish as the wide receiver 1 this year in fantasy football. And coming in at number 1, my favorite wide receiver in football, Cooper Kupp. That's right, y'all. Cooper Kupp with the Los Angeles Rams. He has Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball. Matthew Stafford had a very good season last year. He's dealing with some elbow issues, so that is a concern. This is a pass-friendly offense. Cooper Kupp had an exceptional career year in 2021. It was amazing. 145 receptions, 1,947 yards, and 16 touchdowns. Just so impressive, so amazing. I expected him to bounce back in 2021 because 2020 wasn't great, but it was even better than what I envisioned. If you are drafting Cooper Kupp as your wide receiver 1, which you should, just know that he is going to produce. He is their number 1. And he's just amazing. And that, again, the offense, they love to throw the football. That's one of the main things. And no matter what's going on, they're going to get Cooper Kupp involved. So if he is the first wide receiver off the board, I'm not surprised. Do it. For me, this season, I'm taking Justin Jefferson as the first wide receiver off the board. But if you were to go Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, either or as your wide receiver 1, or pretty much the first wide receiver off the board, you are doing something right, because both of these guys will be in the mix for the wide receiver 1 this year. Ultimately, I do believe it's going to be Justin Jefferson. Leave some comments and let me know your thoughts on my top 10 wide receivers. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you throughout your fantasy football season so you can achieve your goals in fantasy football. I'll see you guys on Saturday. We have our top 10 quarterback rankings. So tune in to see who the top 10 quarterbacks are for the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. I'll see you guys on Saturday.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.